Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of TNT Live, where we're going to go over the Erin O'Toole scandal debacles, no debacle, staying on, leadership review. We're labeling this as the fake politics of the Conservative Party. We'll sort of go into like the sort of, what's being reported and what everyone's saying, and sort of why what everyone's telling you in the Conservative Party is total BS. No one's really being honest with you. We'll go into the mind of the MPs and tell you what they think. So, the story going around is, okay, will Erin O'Toole survive this caucus leadership review? And what a caucus leadership review is, there actually is some mechanism that the Conservative Party has to remove a leader. Now, in Canadian politics, the leader in a lot of things of the party has immense amount of power, like lots more power than an American president has, or what we generally think of politicians doing, because we tend to be very American-centric. So in order to get O'Toole out via the party mechanism is he would need 20% of caucus MPs the MPs, to request a leadership review, and then there is a secret ballot in which he can be removed by a simple majority. So 51%, right? It's simple. Like if there's 100 sitting Conservative MPs, 51 vote to remove him, he's gone. Now there are other ways to remove him. He can be removed in 2023 by the members in at the convention. There's an automatic review triggered at the convention. So if this fails, he will be reviewed at the convention. Now, this is sort of what we're talking about now, and this is what's being covered. And the news coming out around this is the CBC and everyone else. If you look at the mainstream outlets, the CBC's narrative is they talk to MPs and they talk to Erin O'Toole, and Erin O'Toole says, everyone loves me. And they talk to a few MPs who say, Erin O'Toole is great. He's going to stay on. So Michelle Rempel.
Well, I was going to say, I even saw like people from alternative media sort of doing the thing where they come up to MPs and they ask them like, well, how are you voting? What are you going to do? And the reason why we called the episode The Fake Politics of the Conservative Party is because nobody's ever actually going to tell you what's going on inside the party. Everything is essentially a front. If it's publicly known, it's probably not true if it has to do with internal sort of struggles inside the Conservative Party. Nobody wants to put their name to whether or not they want to get rid of Erin O'Toole. I believe Erin O'Toole right now is trying to force it so that they don't have a secret ballot on who wants to keep him and who doesn't want to keep him. Because again, nobody actually wants to ever put their name to any decision they make inside the party. Everyone just sort of wants to have it, their way without having to publicly be for that position.
Yeah, I mean, here's something that we will say that probably will surprise no one listening right now, but 95% of these MPs are not voting on whether they think Erin O'Toole should remain leader. They're voting on self-interest. Like their vote, most of the people casting the vote would be, will I advance by this vote? How does my career advance by this vote? Right. And am I, will keeping Erin O'Toole on make me more likely to achieve a pension? Will I get a promotion? Will I get a job at, whatever strategy firm that is connected to the Conservative Party afterwards? These are the calculations going on for 95% of the MPs voting. Now there's a lot of people who maybe you could say 90%, maybe 5% are voting on revenge, like the ones that, I guess this piles into the 90% because a lot of the MPs will vote to remove him sort of as a mechanism of self-preservation, right? There's a lot of conservative MPs who would say, yeah, get him out, not because of, my conservative values, which, maybe they're voting, but I think it's more, he knows that I have strong conservative values and I oppose the carbon tax, and he does not. And he has a tendency to remove people who vocally and stand on conservative principles. So if you're a type of MP in Alberta or Saskatchewan whose only way of staying in relies around you being very public in your opposition to the carbon tax, and Erin O'Toole is very in favor of a carbon tax, you're sort of in between a rock and a hard spot. So that you could be kicked out by Erin O'Toole for appealing to conservative values. So your vote is essentially remove him. And that's a very simple.
The funny thing is that there's been a sort of a narrative spun in the media that somehow this situation is different from the situation with Andrew Scheer, is that like Erin O'Toole, like we don't want to have to get rid of another leader. Erin O'Toole has caucus support, blah, 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 blah. I'm not sure if you remember, because I definitely don't remember any MPs coming out after the 2019 election and publicly saying that they wanted Andrew Scheer gone. He was essentially gotten rid of in the background. Nobody actually came up in public and went after him, although there's even still been a couple of MPs who have publicly said that they want Erin O'Toole to undergo a review. So Erin O'Toole's in worse shape, despite the fact that the party sort of brass is trying to make it look like he's in better shape than ever and everyone's in love with the guy. That's why, again, you don't trust what sort of press releases people put out. If, Jason Kenney comes out and says, I think Erin O'Toole should stick around, that essentially means absolutely nothing. If not, it probably indicates he wants Erin O'Toole's job.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this last week about the fact that, Kenney is in the O'Toole camp, but Kenney would stab Erin O'Toole in the back if he thinks he can climb over his corpse and get his job. This is, it shouldn't surprise anyone hearing this is political machinations. And a great example of this is Erin O'Toole himself during the Andrew Scheer years. So when Andrew Scheer was going through this, I mean, Erin O'Toole was very publicly, oh, Andrew Scheer, I love him. He's my friend. What a great job he did. But he was, again, driving a knife in his back. And anyone who knows, has a relationship with anyone in Ottawa, an MP, or parliamentary reporters or anyone sort of has a ground in the air in Ottawa, knows that Erin O'Toole and Andrew Scheer did not like each other. They didn't. I mean, the way I described it is they sat at different lunch tables. They had very different cliques. Very Mean Girls-esque, except the most boring version of Mean Girls you could imagine. So Andrew Scheer and Erin O'Toole didn't like each other. It was even Erin O'Toole's people who claimed that they were the ones who politically assassinated Andrew Scheer, and then came after us for reporting on it. So I mean, we'll give full disclaimer here. Okay, everyone knows there's no one on the planet who hates Erin O'Toole more than I do. Okay, we have a personal animus towards each other. I have covered his campaign. He and his people have sued me. They've attacked me, my family, the National Telegraph. Okay, I have no love for the man. So take this all with the sense of Daniel and Erin O'Toole do not get along. And I'm open about that, okay? But I think I do a pretty good job of trying to explain why I'm saying the things I am here. So this is...
I dug that up a few days ago. The Emperor Darth Sidious Erin O'Toole meme.
Yeah, that was that was actually the line Erin O'Toole said to me when I asked him a question at the debate. Good to finally meet you, Mr.
It was the most evil sounding thing I've ever heard. It's how he couldn't take do a couple seconds of thinking in his head and just say, "Hey, hello, Mr. Boardman." He had to say, "Good to finally meet you, Mr. Boardman," and then I don't know, breathe heavily like Darth Vader.
So it's that to me was oh, so the things I've said and the serious issues with your campaign team that I pointed out. Okay, good to know that you're at least aware of them and chose to do nothing about them. And I wonder why you lost making okay, never mind. So moving off that. Okay, so again, you can support the National Telegraph by blah 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 blah, and our law Erin O'Toole just suing us for reporting on stuff like this. Anyway, so what are the odds of O'Toole surviving this? And it's hard to handicap at a caucus level because they've done such a good job of purging all of the Conservatives, because Erin O'Toole is not a stupid man. He's not a brilliant man by all measures of people I've talked to who know him from his time in the military and the legal profession. He is an extremely average man in a lot of respects. He knows that as someone who's going to do the Red Tory stuff and make deals with people who kick people out of the party, he knows that there are a lot of people who will not support him as means of self-preservation, right? So he knows that he had to remove a lot of the Conservatives in the Conservative Party because they would be the ones who would, kick him out in the leadership review if it came to this. So he's been a little bit proactive on kicking people out to sort of preserve his own ass, and this might inspire people to then try and kick him out to save their own ass, and around and around we go.
The big advantage he has over Andrew Scheer is that although I'd say the grassroots of the party actually liked Andrew Scheer quite a bit more than Erin O'Toole, Andrew Scheer didn't really have the forethought to staff up the party while he was the leader with sort of his own ally, so that if a election happened, he didn't win, that he wouldn't immediately get tossed out. He pretty much had other people within the party or Stephen Harper's old people surrounding him, working in the background. Some of the MPs that were elected were his friends, but at the end of the day, MPs really don't have as much sway as people who run the mechanisms of the party. So that's where Erin O'Toole has a little bit of advantage to sticking around, as he has sort of the people who are media savvy and understand how the Conservative Party's constitution works to be able to put off having Erin O'Toole face a leadership review, or at least pressure people out of making him face an early one in caucus.
Yeah, and then like I read the CBC article that came out most recently. I think it came out like 3 hours ago. CBC covered this, and it's kind of what we summed up. And they were making claims that like, oh, Erin O'Toole wants to keep the gains he made in Ontario and Quebec and keep with them. Like, no, he didn't make any gains. He lost in this election. Now, they did say, okay, yes, O'Toole made gains in Labrador and Halifax. Like the Conservative Party made 0 gains. Some places the Liberals lost, and it fell into the laps of the Conservatives, and they didn't then throw it backwards. But there were no gains that O'Toole made personally. There were losses by the Liberal Party. So in my view, the Conservative Party is incredibly exposed here because, the memory of the Canadian liberal public is rather short on these things, right? Teflon Trudeau in a lot of ways. I mean, no one's going to be covering his Torfino excursions by the time we get to the next election. Everything is water under the bridge with Justin Trudeau. The scandals last maybe 48 hours in the media, right? And that's just enough time for the liberal Twitter to get up and say the media is run by conservatives and it's unfair, which is always ridiculous. So, the memory of the liberal voter, the potential liberal voter, is rather short in Canada. So the fact that Justin Trudeau keeps screwing up over and over again, right? And then he thinks he's clear of whatever scandal. In this particular election, it was his failure to, secure, adequate amount of vaccinations in a timely manner, which, really made him less popular because he was running on, I'm the great vaccine guy. Then he couldn't do that. But then once the country started to get more vaccinated, everyone had forgotten how incompetent he was in sort of securing that. And then he was able to run. And then it was only because he kept making more scandals and kept screwing up more and kept being more arrogant that then he dropped more people. But the lifespan on a liberal scandal in our country is maybe a month long. So the only way that the Conservatives gained is by Trudeau dropping seats to him.
Not only that, is that the gains had absolutely nothing to do with Erin O'Toole's strategy. It wasn't an inefficient strategy that worked in some areas. Every single gained seat that the Conservatives had was from a rural area. When they say, oh, we picked up a Labrador riding, it's like, yeah, you picked up the most rural Labrador ride or Newfoundland and Labrador riding there is. And they picked up another one somewhere else. I forget where. They've picked up a few, but they're at a net loss. And the net loss is because they started losing urban ridings because Erin O'Toole was not appealing to urban people, which is sort of
and that was
because that was his entire strategy. Yeah, his whole thing is we dump social conservatives and we pick up soccer moms.
Yeah, that's perfectly summed up. Yeah, we dumped the SoCons, and also the problem with Erin O'Toole is he lied about it, right? So the other thing is the gains were made by Andrew Scheer. Andrew Scheer made gains, and there is a I was a get rid of Andrew Scheer guy too. Okay, and I want to get rid of Erin O'Toole because Andrew Scheer made the cardinal sin of flip-flopping and being weak and showing that he just couldn't handle leader. He couldn't handle being the leader. He couldn't handle all the strategy people and the aides and the focus groups and all this stuff being thrown at him and all the being told to change and do this and being, he didn't lead the party. He was led by the party mechanisms. And I thought, you can't have this. You need an actual leader of this party. Now, my thing with O'Toole is there's absolutely no difference between O'Toole and sort of what you would, I guess, term the deep state controlling, the party elites and all that. Erin O'Toole is very much one of them. So it took no, he didn't have to be coerced into being anything. He was a cut from the cloth, substanceless politician from the start. Whereas Andrew Scheer had some substance that was ground out of him within 48 hours of becoming the leader. But Scheer would have done better than O'Toole because less of a flip-flopper. And he would have had the people are already kind of used to him type thing. People are more comfortable voting for people they know better. So there is so to give credit to this, there is a political school of thought that says Erin O'Toole will do better the next time around because people will be more used to him, right? It's, staying with the same leader builds familiarity. Familiarity builds comfort. Comfort buys votes. There is something to that. However, Erin O'Toole faces one major obstacle that Andrew Scheer wasn't. Erin O'Toole is at war with the Conservative base, a war. Now, yes, Andrew Scheer's political incompetence and him kicking out Maxime Bernier created the PPC, but Andrew Scheer wasn't really at war with the conservative base. The PPC just provided a more conservative option that spurned from milk mafia type stuff. But Erin O'Toole has it out for the conservative base. He does not like you as a conservative voter. He does not want to appeal to you. He does not care about you. He thinks you smell and wants to stay away from you. And he ran on that. That was his appeal to soccer moms, is I will bash my base. I will embarrass them. I will berate them, and I will talk down about them. And this will make me more popular to urban soccer moms. And I've been saying for years, that's not how you win them over. You have to win them over by saying, you know what, my base is actually right about a lot of things. Come over here because we're right about things.
He had this stupid logic that I'm not going to get attacked by the media because I'm pro-choice. I believe in climate change. I'm for the carbon tax. Yet it was this silly argument that they're not going to attack me. But when they did, he didn't even go after them saying this is ridiculous. You're attacking me over things that I just agree with Justin Trudeau on, which I think is one of the big problems with him. But he didn't even do that. So he had the worst of both worlds. He was getting the accusations of being a sort of radical social conservative by the media, but then he also never really even answered back well about it. He had worse answers than Andrew Scheer, because at least everyone understood that Andrew Scheer is a social conservative. But whenever Erin O'Toole was like accused of like you're not pro-choice enough, he'd be like, I've been clear on this with Canadians from the start. I'm pro-choice. I've always been pro-choice. It wasn't like why are you accusing me of something that I'm clearly not doing? You guys are corrupt. If he did that, you could see like, oh, he's actually sort of like understanding how to fight back against the media. Like so many people were portraying Erin O'Toole like, oh, he could be the Conservative Party's Donald Trump. He's like way too weak to even approach maybe Eric Trump.
Yeah. I mean, like, and it was so obvious. Like, O'Toole's logic was flawed from the start. Of, you know what, we're going to take all these positions. It's the Patrick Brown stuff again. We're going to take all these positions so the media can't attack us. It's like the media's going to attack you anyway because you're a conservative. Like, you have to have a plan for when they attack. And this is what Donald Trump did so well, is when they attacked him on ridiculous things, he said, F you. And people liked that. Whereas Erin O'Toole, said, okay, why are you being pro-life? It's like, listen, I understand pro-life people are horrible and we should kill babies. And I shot a baby in the face on my way over here. I've always murdered babies. I'm going to show me a baby. I'll strangle it right now. I just kicked a pregnant woman in the stomach because I love women, right? Instead of saying, instead of doing the white thing, saying, no, you're wrong. This is ridiculous. Like, only have one thing to say? Like, right? Instead of, he couldn't attack the media. He couldn't attack Trudeau because he couldn't attack Trudeau on substance, because if he attacked Trudeau on substance, anyone could look and say, why are you attacking Trudeau on position X when you have the exact same position in your profile? And sometimes they even tried to do that of like, there was something on the, what was it where they were saying, the Liberals are attacking us on this, but it looks like they just stole their policy from our platform. It's like, yeah, because you all think the same. Like that's the problem. There's no.
I don't even remember that. Like that's the thing is the election was 5 seconds ago, yet it was all such a blur, and it wasn't even just because it was a very short election. But all I remember is there were some Liberal scandals, and Erin O'Toole happened to be around, and then something on Anami Paul and Jagmeet Singh, and then it sort of ended. And then the thing is that if you're gonna, the whole point is that like Erin O'Toole also, his entire reason for going after Justin Trudeau was that Justin Trudeau isn't doing the policies we both agree on enough, and I will do them more, or I'll do them slightly
I'll do
less.
them better. It was sort of, I'll do them better.
The Conservatives lost 400,000. Like, even though they're saying we still won the popular vote, who cares? You lost 400,000 votes in Alberta because people just stayed home because they weren't interested in you. That was sort of the problem when people are looking at PPC numbers and saying, oh, the PPC didn't perform as well. I'm like, well, yeah, it's just because apathy ruled the day and nobody showed up to vote. Nobody showed up to vote for Justin Trudeau either, you could follow up and say, but that's your fault for not capitalizing on it. Just pointing out that he sucked a little bit more than you on the popular vote front doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, the Conservative Party dropped votes in both percentage and raw numbers, and there's lots of it was great apathy.
So we have a more rural party now, run by an even more elitist urban sort of core. It's completely disconnected from its base, where all the MPs they elect are very much grassroots conservative type people, yet they're ruled by people who won't let them actually advocate for what was successful.
Yeah, and this is like the total discord within the entire Tudor. I mean, this is O'Toole was doomed from the start, and this is why I blew the whistle on it back February 2020, because one, he was surrounding himself all these red Tories, but then he marketed himself as true blue conservative, right? You saw the Ontario Proud and the Canada Proud. They start off by doing O'Toole and Poilievre, two very solid conservatives. It's like, they knew that no one liked O'Toole, so they're trying to compare him to Pierre Poilievre, which everyone liked. Right. And then, we all kind of remember what happened to Poilievre there. Right. So you have these things where you have these grassroots things. So O'Toole was totally in bed with the Canada Proud, Ontario Proud. I mean, his communications guy, Jeff Fallingall, is Ontario Proud and Canada Proud and all those proud things. That they did join the O'Toole team. So they were on Team O'Toole. But this is the problem with the O'Toole brand of conservatism is it worked fine in the primaries. He could use the Ontario Proud and all the branding that he built up to sort of push O'Toole as true blue, right? The true blue Erin O'Toole. And everyone's like, yeah. But when he got the leadership, right, especially the carbon tax, like Ontario Proud, like in Ballingall's whole thing, Ontario got big because everyone hated Kathleen Wynne and her green energy failures so much that there's this huge push to get rid of Kathleen Wynne. There's this huge push to scrap the carbon tax, which Doug Ford ran on but couldn't do because, again, massive failures with a lot of them. So these issues that really get popular with the conservative base and really expand, right? There was massive panic in Ontario from the media elites over Ontario Proud back in the day. It even forced them to change some laws around super PACs and political third parties because the Liberals had like 12 of them and they were doing whatever for years, funneling billions and hundreds of millions, billions of dollars into the Liberal Party from whatever private sectors you want, which I actually don't have a problem with. But then the Conservatives did it once, and then everyone lit themselves on fire in histrionics. But Ontario Proud and all these things, they got big by pushing conservative values. Now, just Ballingall's credit, he didn't ever portray himself as a social conservative. Ontario Proud never did anything about abortion or whatever. It was a lot of red meat issues.
Although they were anti-cancel culture, and how long did that last?
Exactly. But again, there's two big things is free speech and carbon tax bad, right? You get Erin O'Toole, and I said to him, this guy is not pro-free speech, and his entire team is carbon tax people. So there's going to be an immediate flip once he wins the leadership. And there was an immediate flip when he won the leadership. So you had all these sort of platforms that got big by being pro-free speech and against the carbon tax, all of a sudden have thrown their lot into a leader who's very much against free speech and very much for the carbon tax. And this is the disaster of Erin O'Toole is a lot of these things aren't going to get better. They're going to get worse. You could have kept Andrew Scheer on, and Andrew Scheer would have done better this election than he would have done last election. Now, would he have done well enough to actually win? That's something that we can talk about philosophically. But Andrew Scheer would have done better because he was not at war with the base. He was at war with Maxime Bernier, and say what you will about that, but he wasn't actively at war with the base. He didn't have a distaste for social conservatives. He didn't have contempt for people who didn't want a carbon tax like Erin O'Toole does. Erin O'Toole hasn't fixed any of these problems. Erin O'Toole is still very much against his base, which is going to hurt him going into a next leadership review within the party, because he could have stitched, if he had won, and everyone likes a winner. If he had won, I think he could have stayed in. But I think he faces way too many problems within the Conservative Party and within the Conservative base, because the Conservative base is rather politically astute and politically active.
Yeah.
They understand these issues, and they understand that Erin O'Toole does not like them. And the last convention that we saw, the Conservative Party convention, was the biggest political disaster I've ever seen. You were there. I mean,
yeah. No, legitimately, and after all the numbers were ran, this is just what I know about. I think about. You would say like about 20% of people who showed up were social conservatives. 40% of people who showed up were directly signed up by Derek Sloan, and only about 40% were a mix of other sort of red Tories and other sort of like economic conservatives. Like, he lost on pretty much every issue during the convention, yet then he still got up and delivered that stupid speech where he's just like, we as conservatives are going to recognize that climate change is real, blah, 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 as if his party somehow didn't as if people in his party thought climate change was a hoax and they weren't just not anti-oil and gas, which that was sort of code for. of saying that we recognize that climate change is real. But something else that's going on here, like I just want to ask you what you sort of think is actually going to happen with Erin, because although there's sort of this like, is he gonna get thrown out? Is he not going to get thrown out? Do you think this really more so has to do with whether or not people in the background can get candidates together to try and replace him, or is it actually legitimately based on whether or not people want to keep Erin O'Toole?
Something tells me that I think he has enough infrastructure in place. Like unlike Andrew Scheer, like you pointed out that he did do a good job of staffing the party. Like, and this is something that the left does very well. And like, good on Erin O'Toole for understanding how to be a good leftist. And I actually think this is good political philosophy. And this is one of the failures of the Trump administration at the first 2 years, was the inability to sort of fill out positions downstream and get your people downstream into different positions that not a lot of people overlook, but how important it is to get people here, there, and there. And, this is one of the, I've sort of monitoring, although I don't watch it a lot, but Steve Bannon's War Room. Like, this isn't something Steve Bannon's realized in America of like, get the soccer moms who don't want their son to be chemically castrated at the age of 10 by some radical leftist, get them onto the school boards. And this is the now big push in the States. They're doing this. So this is very excellent. And I think O'Toole was smart enough and is well connected enough that the elites have a vested interest sort of in O'Toole. But I don't think they need O'Toole, because I think, in my experience dealing with these people, as some people are pointing out in the comments, so we can bring this up, is like, yes, I went to court, decision still pending. There's a lot of hubris going on here. And I think the people who were able to put O'Toole in and sort of change the laws of the convention to get an O'Toole thing, I think they know that what's Erin O'Toole to us? Like, we could, Jason Kenney's the same thing. Or we can get, Michelle Ramp. Like, there's enough people who are like, okay, like.
What I think is that if grassroots people were filling up a lot of the internal positions of the party, Erin O'Toole would have probably been forced to resign by breakfast at the day after the election. The only thing him staffing up the party has done, it doesn't buy him another 2 months exactly as leader, or doesn't even buy him like surviving a leadership review. What it at very least does is that it means that those people, unless they have someone waiting in the wings that they're ready to push, they're going to have to say, okay, well, I guess we're going to have to re-roll the dice on a new election potentially, or give him another few months to sort of get his crap together, where he's still in sort of the danger zone. Because if those people have any good connections and can sort of tap on the shoulders of anyone either who is currently an MP or outside of the party who wants to run for leadership, then he'll definitely be kicked out. He's just hoping, that's why he's rushing the review, I believe, because if anything, you would assume people are most angry at him closer to the election day failure than they would be maybe a month later. But what he wants to do is, I believe he's trying to force the caucus vote right now, because he's hoping that nobody has anyone lined up to replace him. So then everyone will just vote to keep him around, because he sort of called their bluff, I guess.
Yeah, and like people, I can already sense the question of like what about Pierre Poilievre question is like, Pierre Poilievre is the person the Conservative Party base wants. The people want Poilievre. The party doesn't want Poilievre. Again, because Poilievre, he's not really part of any strong internal clique. He's pretty independent-minded. He's charismatic, and I like tenacious.
Poilievre's the sort of guy where people probably in the party, either they know he would do it, or they would sense that he would probably immediately clean house if he became the leader. A lot of people around the opposition leader's office would get thrown out. He would replace them with actual competent conservatives. And I don't think that they really want that to happen. All the stories we've ever heard are that he's not a team player. He's mean to people. He's sort of the short with people, like, yeah, because you're idiots. Of course he doesn't like you. You're unlikable. But the whole point is that you're supposed to play along. You're supposed to play the game, which is why Jason Kenney's coming on and said, I think Erin O'Toole did a great job and he should stick around, even though they clearly hate each other's guts, and Erin O'Toole knows that Kenney probably hurt him a little bit during the election. Everyone will just keep being nice to each other while there are people in the background try and knife Erin.
Yeah, again, this is sort of like everyone is incentivized to say publicly, Erin did a great job. What did he do? What did he do that you liked? No. I want to like this is my frustration with like the mainstream media is like ask a friggin' follow-up question that people care about. Oh, we think he did a great job. Okay, on what metric? What did he do well? And I guarantee you, there's not a single conservative MP who would be able to competently answer the question, what did you like about Erin O'Toole's campaign?
What was your favorite flip-flop of the campaign and why?
What was your favorite flip-flop? Did you like the part where he was for the rights of gun owners? Or do you like the part when he went against the rights of gun owners? Do you like the part where he said he's going to kick anyone out if he didn't agree with the platform and then disagreed with his own platform? Right?
This is why American politics is so much better, is that Democrats and Republicans, one, because you have a right to be part of a party in the United States and you can't just be thrown out because people don't like the way you look or something, that people just say what they think about the party leaders, that they just say, Mitch McConnell's an idiot, Nancy Pelosi's an idiot, I'm not going to vote for what they want, and then they just storm off, which is like, yeah, I guess people are a little bit more contentious in the United States, but that's good because you at least know where everyone stands. In Canada, I heard like when MPs were leaving a caucus meeting like yesterday or something like that, they were literally trying to escape out the back of the building so the media wouldn't ask them a question, even though the media is not even going to ask a competent question.
Yeah, and like in the sense, I mean, American system is a bit designed for gridlock, and God bless him for it. But you know, in the Republican Party, you have Rand Paul, who will filibuster a drone strike for 10 days, right? In the Democratic Party, you got Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin right now saying $3.5 trillion to buy fairy farts for AOC is not money well spent. Like we can't just throw money into fictional green energy initiatives and have West Virginians like reelect me.
It's because they own the seats that they're currently in. If they're the nominee, they're the nominee. And unless someone's going to actually launch a credible challenge against them, it's still theirs. The problem is if you're in Alberta and you're saying, I'm not going to go along with this stupid carbon tax because I could lose my job, that Erin O'Toole doesn't have to care because he can just get rid of you and replace you with someone who will pretend like it's a great idea.
Yeah, then this is a big flaw with Canadian politics is the leaders have far too much power in the party compared to other things. I mean, yeah, this is really, I mean, you know, this is Justin Trudeau. This is a Jody Wilson-Raybould story, right? Had this been America and Jody Wilson-Raybould did what she did, like they couldn't have kicked her out of caucus, and they couldn't, and they, you know, Justin Trudeau is not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I don't think, you know, after they got shut down a couple of times, the Katie Telfords and Gerald Butts and the Michael Warnicks of the world probably wouldn't have kept pressuring her. Probably would have said, okay, this is a bit of a dead end here. Like we can't force her to do what we want on this particular issue. You know, we're just going to have to drop it or do something else. Whereas like, in the Liberal Party, they could just say, oh, do it. Okay, fine. No. David Lametti, you're now the Attorney General. Do exactly what we tell you.
Like Justin Trudeau would never get a leadership position in like the House, Senate, or even become the president of the United States. Because if you can't get rid of people and just sort of circumvent conflict and never actually have to work it out, you're never going to get anywhere. And Justin Trudeau's never been someone who's actually been able to resolve an issue behind the scenes. Pretty much even more than in the Conservative Party, every single conflict within the Liberals eventually explodes, and one or two people are thrown out. It's almost, and the media doesn't really cover it that much because they like him. But like the Liberal Party is incredibly dysfunctional. It's because Trudeau does not have the ability to do any sort of issue management. But again, you'll never really notice it because these issues last 5 seconds because you can just throw the person out on their face, and the story never really develops past like a couple months at most.
Yeah, and this is another problem I have is the Canadian media is so cynical and elitist that they're like these interesting stories are no one cares about them. So it's like they get this self-fulfilling prophecy of like because they don't cover it, oh, the story went away, and then see, I was right, no one cared about the story. And this is like the Derek Sloan being kicked out story. Yeah, that was like the big thing. It's like that was actually a pretty interesting story. But all the, you know, conservative and liberal media pundits said, oh no, you know, it's Canadian politics, it's not that interesting, so people don't care. It's like, yeah, they don't care. Something crazy happened and you chose not to write about it.
Every single story just becomes about polling and is this good political maneuvering by Erin O'Toole or Justin Trudeau? I'm like, who cares? It's like they should be covering this Erin O'Toole thing as Erin O'Toole sucked. He lost the election, and now he's trying to convince people he should stay on. But in this, they're like saying, "Well, did he like broaden the appeal of the Conservative Party? Is he trying to fast track this vote as an interesting political maneuver so that people can't get rid of him?" It's like, no. If the media was honest, they'd be like, Erin O'Toole lost, and he's still trying to desperately hang on to power, despite the fact that a lot of people really hated his leadership. They'll never cover it like that. It's always about sort of polling and, well, are they broadening the appeal? And they're always talking about politics in the abstract rather than sort of just the objective reality. He did not do a good job. But Erin O'Toole sort of, it's almost like they're trying to gaslight the conservative base, because he has like a 43% approval rating within the party, which is an abysmal, because most people just unthinkingly say the conservative leader is doing well because they assume that they're inverse of the question. If you say they're not doing well, it means that the liberals are good or something. The fact that he only has like 42% approval is horrific.
You can't be underwater in your own party. The fact that having an approval rating below 50% in your own party is insane. Like, it's one thing if it's nationally, right? This is like Donald Trump can have a 93% approval rating among Republicans and then a 5% approval rating among Democrats. Like, that makes sense. Right, you understand,
and it's okay because at very least that means at the end of the day he has about half the country on his side, and he can probably drive those people up better than the Democrats, and that's the logic. With Erin O'Toole, it's like you own maybe like 30% of the public that will vote for you in any given election, like 30 to 35, and only 42% of those people would vote for you potentially. Like, that's horrific. Like, what? Like, how is this person even being like tolerated in the position? I never remembered like all the stories about Andrew Scheer having bad approval. It would be like, oh, he slipped 7 points. I'm like, yeah, maybe from 77 to 70. It was never, and that was bad, but it's not this bad. But they're acting as if like, oh, he's still maintaining 42%. Like, no, you've lost more like 30%.
Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. This, you cannot, like, Erin O'Toole, I don't see a pathway to victory for Erin O'Toole. And I understand and I outlined it. This is a political truism. There is something to be said of people getting familiar. People like voting for the familiar. People feel more comfortable, like, with someone they know. It's one of the, it's basic human psychology in a lot of ways. But what's Erin O'Toole's pathway to victory? Right? Because he's underwater in his own party or approval ratings, so he doesn't drive out his base. Right? There's a huge turnout within the Conservative Party. And a lot of people defected the PPC. A lot of people like me who were unenthusiastically voted for Andrew Scheer because they're like, okay, Scheer was better than Justin Trudeau. I understand it. And you know what? Erin O'Toole forced me, literally took me by the neck and threw me into the PPC. Like, that's...
I didn't love Andrew Scheer, but at the end of the day, like, if it's a competition between who deserves to stick around more between Erin O'Toole and Andrew Scheer, definitely Andrew Scheer deserved to stick around longer. And the fact that you threw him out means Erin O'Toole absolutely has to leave. The thing with Andrew Scheer is at least he was a very pleasant man. You could, over time, people would probably think he's a really nice guy. I'd like to maybe not get a beer with him. I'd love to get a cup of tea with him. Just some like great dad you would talk to at like a hockey game while you're watching your kids play or something like that. Like,
and there's a pathway for Andrew Scheer.
Erin O'Toole is
better.
But Erin O'Toole is a deeply unpleasant person to even listen to. He's just, you can tell he's sort of covering up his personality with very mild rhetoric and whatnot. But of all the times all the stories I've heard from him in the background, he's just an absolute awful person to be around. And I think the Canadian public, even though he puts on a sort of like a nice front, can sort of detect that this is someone I wouldn't want to spend more than 5 minutes around.
Yeah, and like I'm saying, the pathway for Andrew Scheer was, you can understand it. People get more familiar with him, but also there are mistakes, non-fatal mistakes that Andrew Scheer could fix and not look like a hypocrite, right? He could become more human. He could loosen up a bit. He could ditch sort of the polling data focus group. He can be more like Speaker of the House Andrew Scheer and less like leadership Andrew Scheer, right? The commercials he shoots, he can look the camera in the eye next time. The commercials would be about substance, not about his mother, right? Andrew Scheer's commercials, I was making fun of them because they were basically like, you know what? My best friend is my mom. Okay. And I love my mom. And I'm like, is this the demographic we're appealing to? Your mom? Like, is this the voting base we need to secure Andrew Scheer's mom?
My favorite commercial was still him walking through the park, and he just sees that mother and the daughter walking past him. He's like, "Hey guys," it's so freaking weird. They sort of pass by him, and he just like, "Hey guys," in the background. It's so weird while he's just sort of quietly talking about politics. I was never sure who's supposed to like watch this and say, "I'm into this. I like Andrew Scheer."
I remember that.
Still tell he's a nice person.
Show a genuine moment. They were trying to show a genuine moment because that like did happen. Okay. So That being said, there was a pathway for Scheer to become better. It's just a few things in marketing, getting a bit more comfortable, learning. Andrew Scheer's biggest problem is he needed to learn who to say no to within the party. He needed to learn who to just not listen to some more, because there's no fatal flip-flop with Andrew Scheer. Like, yes, he modified himself a bit running for leadership, but he was never rah, rah, rah. Yeah, he wasn't in favor of abortion in the 90s, whatever. But it was pretty clear, even no matter what the CBC tried to tell you, that, you know what, he had accepted that Canada is a pro-choice nation. He is not going to try and re-legislate that. Here are his ideas. He thinks we should, less carbon tax. Here's a conservative platform, a very vanilla conservative platform, but it was a vanilla conservative platform.
The attacks on him will also become
left-wing platform.
Yeah, the attacks on Andrew Scheer will also become more boring over time, because you can't say he's a crazy SoCon every single election, because after years and years go by, people are going to be like, well, I've still not seen him do anything crazy, so I'm going to stop caring about that. It's not like, it's not an attack that can last in the long run. A lot of media attacks tend to be short term. Hopefully we can hopefully we can cripple them right before the election, and then we win. And if it doesn't work, then that tax sort of gets taken away from them.
Yeah, I mean, you I could envision a way for Scheer to get better and win. And, okay, even though I was a big on get rid of Andrew Scheer, we need an actual leader, a conservative leader, like someone like Poilievre or Candice Bergen, or, all these different things. There are people out there who would be better. But Andrew Scheer, okay, fine, whatever. It was, vanilla conservatism. There is no pathway with Erin O'Toole. I don't see a pathway, because it's what I said before. All of Erin O'Toole's political philosophy and the Waleed Solomon, Patrick Brown, Dan Robertson, the Patrick Brown team, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You only got popular in Ontario, guys, because Kathleen Wynne was so critically and fatally unpopular. Liberals had failed for 12 years. For 12
she had 15% approval rating.
Yeah, her approval rating was around under 15%. It was only because you were running at someone whose approval rating was under 15%, because they had screwed the province up so badly, and it took 10 years for the Ontario public to catch on, that you then went with this whole, we can't be conservative thing, so we'll need to have a carbon tax, we'll need to do this, and you would have won by default, right? So there's
type of politics. If you've ever taken a political science class, the way that those people, Dan Robertson, Waleed Solomon, Patrick Brown, everyone who was on their teams, everyone who's currently on Doug Ford's team, it's sort of the politics and the political strategy you learn in political science classes. It's extremely clinical. It's all about finding the average voter who doesn't actually exist, finding out how to sort of bring everyone together, having a political platform that's very well-rounded and sort of includes everybody. It's no, people are passionate. You have to have policies you're passionate about to run on, or people aren't going to be interested.
And you have to make the case for yourself.
We're literally in a political environment where all you have to do is win a third of people to form government. Why would you even care about trying to appeal to every single person if you only need 1 in 3 of them to win?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying. But how does Erin O'Toole come? Let's say Erin O'Toole survives. Let's say Erin O'Toole survives 2023, and the pathway for Erin O'Toole to survive is simple, right? He has enough people inside the party that he survives the caucus vote. They don't get the 20% who are actively strident, get rid of this guy, and you don't have the 51% to say, all right, let's pull the trigger. Okay, fine. The way he survives in 2023 is he's bled so much of the base and so much of the conservative base to the PPC or to Maverick or to just apathy that they don't show up, and there's no one at the Conservative Convention in 2023 motivated enough, caring enough about conservative values to vote him out. In this scenario in which he survives, that is a catastrophe for the Conservative Party in general, because that means the only way Erin O'Toole survives in 2023 in a leadership review from the party is that you've bled so much of your base that they don't show up to a convention and they're not there. It means and that's fatal for the Conservative Party, because the Conservative Party, in order to win, right, you just need to get to 33%. You need 1/3 of the country, which means you need the third of the country that is motivated conservatives to be motivated and get out and vote, and then go and win over a few stragglers on key policy issues.
Yeah, well, it actually feels other than the fact that the failure wasn't as bad from Erin O'Toole because Justin Trudeau was like absolutely dedicated to shooting himself in the foot as many times during the election as humanly possible. Like Erin O'Toole still is essentially the Conservatives' Kim Campbell, but he just happened to not fail that bad that nobody really noticed. And he was only elected because just enough people were turned off by the party that they didn't show up to vote for Derek and Leslyn Lewis, because Leslyn Lewis won the popular vote in the second ballot. And essentially, if 1% of more people went to her, she would have probably won on points and then beat Peter MacKay for the number one spot. But yeah, like Erin O'Toole essentially won because of apathy, and he'll only stick around because of apathy, that just because there's enough people who are just, even if they're not leaving the the Conservative Party for the PPC, they're just bored enough by how they know everything is pretty much scheduled. Whoever's going to win is going to win, that nobody's ever actually going to take our concerns seriously. Erin O'Toole, even if we get rid of him, it's going to be slow walked for like 5 months. He'll find ways of delaying this, that I'm just done. And it's going to be a false victory for Erin O'Toole, and I'm really wondering if, honestly, he just likes being leader, even though he knows he'll never be prime minister.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me a bit of Bashar al-Assad, when everyone's like, resign, Assad, and he was like, he was murdering his own civilians, and he took terrorists out of the prisons and released them, and that helped create ISIS. And when this is an ISIS leader, he's a terrorist. Well, yeah, shouldn't he be in a Syrian prison right now? No, we just let him all out of prisons just so we could create a fake an enemy worse than me, right? But in the sense, and I don't admire Bashar al-Assad in any way, but in the sense that you admire Assad, is like, he at least understood that, like, okay, I'm done if I'm not leader of Syria. So I will burn this thing down to keep me in power. Because what I'm going to do is surrender to the Americans and then give myself up to a global tribunal and face like an international tribunal for war crimes. And at best, if I prostrate myself, I get life in prison at whatever. Like, no. He's like, I'll go out swinging and I'll burn this country down to keep me in power. This kind of reminds me of what the Erin O'Toole situation, where, okay, well, like, what's Erin O'Toole's motivation for leaving, right? As some loser? Like, if he resigns, right, scandal-free, he's just a loser who walked away and said, you know what, all right, I'm done, I'm out. Like, there's no future for him. He doesn't get the speaking engagements. He doesn't get he doesn't get to keep taking that leadership salary. He doesn't get to keep having his name in the media. He doesn't get to write his, like, Erin O'Toole, how to flip flop on everything, the novel, right? He doesn't get to do all those leadership things. So he might as well, barrel bomb the Conservative Party base just to maintain power and rule the ashes like Assad did in Syria. This is kind of what it reminds me of.
Well, what's funny about all the people, and sorry, I accidentally left the stream because I'm terrible at managing my tabs on the computer. But the thing about all the people inside the Conservative Party who we've heard strong rumors about trying to help to replace Erin O'Toole with a different politician, it's always like the worst options possible. Like, really, Jason Kenney's going to be the one to unify the Conservative Party? Patrick Brown's going to show up? What? Like, where are we going to find, like, the dead corpse of, like, another politician from the 1940s or something? Like, can we get someone who actually has a political life left to live? But the thing is, these people want to run because they have massive egos, and I think they just like seeing themselves run in politics. They like having their name, like, in the CBC, and people are talking about them in strategic terms, like, oh, I wonder if Patrick Brown's going to be able to outflank Jason Kenney on blah blah blah. Even if he doesn't win, he just likes the fact that the media had to talk to him about what he was up to.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of this, and I think Erin O'Toole. That's why Erin O'Toole is, like, sort of clinging to his political corpse, because unless he's so narcissistic and so stupid that he's buying everything that the focus groups and the insiders and the Patrick Brown holdovers are telling him about, like, listen, Erin, in order to win an election, you have to stab your base in the back and then pretend to be a liberal. And the polling. Unless he's like, he could pretty much be, okay, whatever.
Sorry, wait. This happened to me. I talked to one of the Conservative candidates. I'm not going to say if they were a former MP or not, but one of the Conservative candidates in 2021 who was then thrown out later, who was not allowed to run. I talked to them about sort of the way that the party was run inside, just privately, and I just mentioned Crestview Strategies, and they absolutely cannot stand Crestview Strategies. They can't stand all these strategy firms that run the party, and they will unload on them if you ask them privately. But if they're still an MP, they'll be like, what are you talking about, these strategy firms? But after they don't have anything to lose, they'll say that they hate their guts. Like, it's insane how the Conservative Party is literally operating under the advice of strategy firms run by Justin Trudeau's political friends and personal friends, very personal friends. But yeah, whatever. Daniel knows what I'm talking about on that last point.
I know what you're talking about. I just, we don't need more lawsuits here at TNT, but we'll just say we love Crestview Strategies, great strategy firm. Big fan of Melissa Lantzman. She's great, absolutely great. I think we should kill every small business, and I don't mean figuratively. I mean literally. I do mean going door to door, shooting to kill every small business owner, taking their money, giving it to Walmart and Amazon. I do believe in this. This is my views. God bless Melissa Lantzman and every strategy firm. That is my view. So okay, go on. Moving on. What is it?
How do we pivot off this very awkward point?
How do we pivot off this to how do the 40,000 lawyers watching this show? We got him. That meme going on right now. How do we pivot off this? Sunshine lollipops. I mean, at least they're not the Green Party. I guess we could say that. It's like the only saving grace for Erin O'Toole is the party is in less turmoil than the Greens right now. And that is something to say. And I guess we could talk about and this other thing is when does Jagmeet Singh's leadership review come up? Is anyone how do we get rid of how does the NDP get rid of Jagmeet Singh? Now, I've gone on record saying I love Jagmeet. I love Jagmeet Singh. He is one of my favorite Canadians of all time. I think he's a true patriot, even though he loves Khalistan more than Canada. A true Canadian patriot hates the NDP and tries to destroy it. No one has done a better job of destroying the NDP than Jagmeet Singh. And I've said for a while, he does not get the credit he deserves for his tireless effort to burn the NDP down.
Funny how in burning the NDP down also requires you to pander to their base as much as possible. The thing is, at very least, Jack Layton and Thomas Mulcair understood that you weren't really supposed to give the NDP base everything they wanted because there was a big socialist element to the base. The NDP Socialist Caucus was really only a thing after Jagmeet Singh showed up. Jack Layton would drop kick you if you actually came out and talked about socialism because he understood that socialism is incredibly unpopular. He was a social democrat and that was it. And Thomas Mulcair also was like that, but Jagmeet Singh is destroying the party because he's giving the base every single thing that they want, and that's why he's still incredibly popular in the party. And to at least give the Green Party some credit, despite being an anti-Semitic den of nonsense. Den of fools and morons. At very least, that they say what they mean and they do what they want, in the sense that they get a Jewish leader, they will try and burn them at the stake openly in the public forum just to let everyone know where they stand on the issue of Jewish people. Whereas in the Conservative Party, this is why, again, we're just talking about fake politics. Nobody will ever tell you that their actual opinion on the carbon tax these days, because Erin O'Toole has made it an untouchable issue. So unless someone knifes him in the back, gets rid of him, there's a leadership race where maybe one candidate runs against the carbon tax, and if they happen to win, then a lot of the Conservatives will come out of the closet again and say, hey guys, we were always against the carbon tax, but Erin O'Toole didn't let us say that we weren't.
Yeah, and a lot of this can a lot of their problems just go away if these people have some cojones, some testicular fortitude. A lot of it goes away because if you say, listen, I'm against the carbon tax, because if you go as a Conservative MP and you sort of die on that hill, Erin O'Toole can't remove you if you're willing to stand on that hill, saying, you know what? I'm against the carbon tax. This is my environmental policy. This is why I'm upset. Come at me, bro. Erin O'Toole can't come at you. It's your sort of sheepish, well, we didn't like the fact that he was this or that or flip-flopping, and we were that will get you burned. but you stand your ground on a popular issue within the base and say, okay, you want to do this, I'll stand on this hill and I'll say why I disagree with you here. And you run me over, there's a 0% chance you make it past 2023. 0%. And that's sort of the and you can launch your political career by being the first one to stand on the hill. But everyone in there is such a feckless coward that it's not even worth wasting our breath talking about. If only someone within the Conservative Party was a bit more had a bit more moral courage, then we'd be in a no, it's not.
People don't understand. Like, the problem is conservatives, and no current conservative MP understands how the actual media works in Canada and abroad. They just assume, they buy into the narratives that are true, that the Liberals own the media, but they don't understand that you can still beat them by sort of beating them at their own game. By pushing back hard on them, you'll win, but nobody wants to test it because unlike America, Americans
the
have tested it
the
and
media
won.
has in the public is also nowhere near as big as it used to be. Right? This is why I always think the conservative insiders, the people whispering in Erin O'Toole's ear, are dead set convinced that it's the year 2006, and every year is the year 2006, and it never changes. Like, what we're saying is, you can beat the media. There's a lot of people, even on the left, who distrust the media, and people who religiously read the CBC and global news and say, this is where the truth is. Okay, they're not going to vote for you anyway. And you outlined this earlier, Wyatt. Like, the way you win is you need 35% of the vote gets you a strong majority as the Conservatives. What do you need to do? You need to appeal to your base, get them energized, and go out there. And that will get you to at least 28%, right there. Then, right, if you just keep your pants on, you don't say the N-word every 15 seconds, right? That's another few percentage there of just not being crazy, right? Then you can get a few percentage points of Justin Trudeau being unpopular, right? That gets you to around 33%. And the way you then get over the hump is you stand on conservative issues in a positive way, and you win people over with specific wedge issues, right? Like the PPC tried to do, right? Had the Conservative Party been against mandatory vaccine passports, right there's an issue that would have driven a lot of people to you, because vaccine passports are not a pure left-right thing, even though people are trying to make the thing that way. Like, prior to the COVID vaccine, like the anti-vax movement, prior to COVID, when like when there was, people were talking about, the flu shot, this and that, and measles and mumps, the anti-vax movement was pretty spread out across the political spectrum. Being against vaccines in 2017 was not an indication of political belief. It wasn't. There were people, liberal, health nut, hippie.
You're actually more likely to be a Green Party member.
Yeah, more likely to be a Green Party member. Like, the biggest ones were like a lot of the hippy dippy natural medicine types, right? I believe in Eastern medicine. Western pharmaceutical companies are corporations. Capitalism is evil. Capitalism kills us. The vaccines are capitalism. Like, that was the most popular type of that. It
actually reminds me of someone who came into the store I was working at the other day. He's just some early guy in his early 20s or whatever, and he had some weird bleached white beard or whatever, and he'd walk into the place feeling up the energy of the room before telling you about how he's his own person and he doesn't have to listen to government rules. He was a weird mix of Green Party member and sovereign citizen all at the same time, and I loved it.
Yeah, so that was the thing. But the, let's say, anti-vax move, and I think a lot of people here are probably not anti-vax but anti this specific COVID vaccination, and I think that's
or at least anti-mandating it, because it should always be your.
I mean, I'm getting myself there after the recent Pfizer tape of the Project Veritas. I'm like, yeah, I think it's perfect. I think even though I have the 2 Pfizer vaccines, I'm now against them. And everyone knows I've talked about how I'm not getting the booster shots and all that, but yeah, now I no longer recommend that you get the first 2 and then go. And it's no, screw all these people, whatever. But you would have won over a lot of people going that way. And you know what? Would the Charles Adlers of the Conservative Party be oh, I'm leaving, they're anti-vaccine? Yeah, Charles Adler might have cried and pooped his pants like the baby he is, and then said, I'm not voting for you. Whatever. Who cares? Right? But you would have won over people on things like, hey, carbon tax this, better if they're just
People forget that video cameras exist, and you can cut your own video if the media tries to smear you. Social media exists, And if Erin O'Toole ever got like attacked if he was against the mandates, he could just cut a video saying CBC lied. They're corporate. They're like literal. They
So
are
stuff
like
like this is crazy.
Government funded. Not they're government funded media garbage. I'm not against vaccines. I'm against mandates. And if he did that, he would have won. But he doesn't understand that video cameras exist when the CBC aren't holding them. It's like he doesn't understand object permanence. He's an infant.
Yeah, it's a Conservative Party right there. All right, so that's been a good hour. Thanks everyone for being here. Remember to like and share the video. Click all the buttons. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the Facebook page and follow.
Donate to the GoFundMe.
Donate to the GoFundMe. Yeah, if you really hate Erin O'Toole, remember he is suing me for like, what's it? Erin O'Toole and the Conservative Party. I think O'Toole specifically wants like around $4 million from me, and then the Conservative Party. Well, okay, it's like okay. What's Erin O'Toole? What's the Muslim Brotherhood? Who knows? It's like. What do they want?
Like combined like $6 million or something at this point. But if you were planning on never giving, if you usually give the Conservative Party $40 every year, well, you can give us $40 instead, and we'll guaranteed not use it to push, pro climate change.
Yeah, okay, if you want an update on this,
I don't even know what they would do with it. They'd probably just burn it.
2 weeks ago, I had my summary judgment hearing. That was 2 weeks ago. So. We'll see if it's outright dismissed, if I lose, or if we go to a full trial. That's on the big one. That's in the $2.5 million one. Now he still is suing the National Telegraph for reporting on his campaign, basically bragging about politically assassinating Andrew Scheer and blackmailing Pierre Poilievre and wanting to ruin Jim Kalaharos' life. That one is, we haven't heard from them in a while. And then,
must be a great case.
Yeah, and then I got another one from the Muslim Brotherhood. There's another case because there was a mosque run by the Muslim Association of Canada. They put out a prayer where they said, cleanse the Al-Aqsa Mosque from the filth of the Jews, count their number, slay them one by one, spare not one of them. And then they said, hey, this video of us praying online, which we put out ourselves, criticizing it as Islamophobic because it's mistranslated. What we really said was cleanse the Al-Aqsa Mosque from the desecration of the Jews, count their number, slay them one by one, spare not one of them. So they're like, see, non-anti-Semitism. And I said, no, that's still anti-Semitic. That's an open call for genocide of Jews. And they're like, you owe me $1 million. And that was Peter MacKay's Muslim liaison captain there. Lots of great stuff going on inside the Conservative Party now. You can wonder why these people are at war. So yeah, if you give money to the Conservative Party, that money goes to lawyers to pay lawyers to sue me, Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe open call genocide of Jews is a good thing and not anti-Semitic. And if you donate to our GoFundMe, it goes to defending things to say like free speech should be allowed. Yeah. And you know what? Killing Jews is anti-Semitic.
You're not just paying for like day-to-day operations of the National Telegraph and Daniel Boardman's show. There's actually real results that can come out of funding him and his sort of legal situations. Is that if people get judgments against them, it's going to make it very difficult for a lot of these people to politically operate if they keep being shown to like be filing frivolous lawsuits. So it's not just
also if a judge
go fund us so we can put up some ads for the page.
Yeah. So yeah, and if also a judge rules that it's fair comment to say things X, Y, and Z about person X, A, B, and C, well then you can say X, Y, and Z about A, B, and C. And I think the world's a better place when we can say things we want to say. So that's my rant for the day. Wyatt, you can finish this one off.
I'm not even sure what to add to that. Daniel probably wants to go, so I'm just going to end it here in as awkward fashion as possible.